Rugby Championship round number 4, folks. Pumas and All Blacks are going to go at it again, this time from Hamilton. The Pumas, with that first ever win over the All Blacks in New Zealand, are sitting top of the log. The All Blacks are down in third with a 1-2 record, 2-1 for the Pumas. Pumas up to 7th in the world. New Zealand down to 5th. Lots to play for in this one. We will go through the lineups, some stats for the players and the teams, recent results, predictions, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how this one is going to play out. As I mentioned, it's kind of all been a wee bit negative in the New Zealand press this week, but maybe not as negative as after the Irish series. It seems like people are getting used to losing. So we'll see if the All Blacks can kind of rectify that this week and everything will be happy for a fortnight. But yeah, not much to say in terms of changes for the starting 15. It's pretty rare for the All Blacks not to tinker, but it's the second week in a row that they're not tinkering. So it's the same starting 15 that went out and played last week. So still Groot, Taukei'aho and Lomax. And I thought at scrum time, these guys did particularly well. So they will be looking to try and dominate up front and maybe get a bit more from it than they did last week. Whitelock and Barrett are the same locks. And then Frizell, Kane and Savea the same back row. If there's one thing these forwards, I guess, need to work on, which is maybe easier said than done, it's clearing out those Argentinian jacklers, because it was turnovers won by the Argentinian guys that was one of the key factors in that Argentinian victory last week. Smith and Mo'unga, be interesting, Savea at 9. Smith and Mo'unga 9 and 10. So they continue on. Mo'unga was really praised after the win over in South Africa and then kind of critiqued last week. We'll see if he's kind of still given that free license to run from backfield or whether the All Blacks decide to kick it a wee bit more. Havili and Rieko are at 12 and 13. That's kind of steady as she goes, man. These guys have been paired up for a wee while now. Havili, he's a guy whose kicking game, if they decide to implement it, could get the All Blacks going forward because he's certainly got a bit of a talent with the boot. Whereas Rieko, it's pretty much all about his running game. I think he passes about 25% of the time, which is not ridiculously low for a 13. A lot of the 13s around the world are similar. But, yeah, I do feel there's times he does need to let it go. I've been saying that for a wee while. But the guy, his attacking numbers are good ball in hand. But, yeah, anyway. Will Jordan is on the right wing and Clarke's on the left. So that's the same. And then Jordy Barrett, who was kind of secure without being spectacular last week at fullback, continues on. So pretty secure under the high ball, which is more than can be said for like the Aussies the week before or the fortnight before against the Argentinian kicking game. But yeah, it was really kind of breaking down the Argentinian attack where the All Blacks had issues. Now there are some changes on the bench. Dane Coles comes in for Cody Taylor, who was a bit of a stinker last week, so that's kind of a maybe expected change. Bauer and Newell still there as the backup props. Retallick comes back in after recovering from that broken cheekbone. Remember, he's had 1 week of MPC. So, Tupavai drops out of the team. Dalton Papalii comes in. A lot of All Blacks fans, or at least from my part of the country, would have liked to see him in at 7, but it's only in on the bench for Dalton, and that means Ioane drops out, and then Finlay, Christie, Quinn, are still there. Brodie is back in now that he's back fit, and that means Stephen Perofeta, after 50 seconds of All Blacks time, is back out of the squad. So, yeah, man, I mentioned Rieko's running game, like defenders beaten, run meters, that stuff's all good. Like I said, the passing is kind of low. Like for every 4 times he gets the ball, he's going to run it 3. That's just kind of the way his game has gone. Savea, top offloader, one of our top tacklers, top turnover guys. He's certainly a bit of a fantastic player, but yeah, it's a team game. And the All Blacks certainly need to step things up. For Argentina, likewise pretty stable, but they have tinkered a little bit more than the All Blacks in terms of the starting 15 anyway. Gaggio, Montoya and Sclavi are the same front row as last week, and they acknowledged in their press conference that set piece, particularly the scrum, was an area they were under pressure, so they'll be looking to improve there from last week. Petty comes into the second row alongside Lavanini. Alemano drops to the bench, so it's not kind of wholesale changes. It's not a new man into the 23. It's just, one guy dropping to the bench and one guy starting, and Petty is a fantastic guy to have in there. Although Alemano has kind of been the king of the air for the Argentinians so far, so you'll expect Petty to fill that role, and Lavanini around the park has just been bruising and he's been having a phenomenal time of it. So good to see him kind of continue on. Grondona, Crema, and Matera, speaking of fantastic, the Pumas back row has been really good, although the try scorer, Juan Martin Gonzalez, is down to the bench this week, so Grondona takes his spot. Crema got through like 26 tackles last week. Matera was phenomenal, so yeah, we'll see if these guys can do that same kind of shift 2 weeks in a row, like 190 odd tackles at 96%. Not an easy one to back up. Kubeli and Carreras, the same 19 combo. And Carreras, with his kicking game, was really having a peach of it, wasn't he? Like, he was just putting the ball down where he wanted it on a string, getting his guys going forward, so really keeping the All Blacks defenders in two minds. And then Kubeli's up from the bench ahead of Bertrand, who last week I thought kept the Pumas guys going forward really well. Orlando and Moroni, that's the same 12-13 combo as last week. Cordero comes in for Sinti on the left wing. Sinti didn't get that much ball in hand, but Sinti is still on the bench. Remember, he can cover the midfield too. Boffelli with that 100% boot of his still on the right wing, and then Malia still there at fullback. So there's no guys in the starting 15 who weren't in the squad last week. It's just a few guys swapping bench roles for starting roles. Socino, Vivas, and Bello, or Bejo, are the reserve front row. So that's the same as last week. Alamano, like I mentioned, dropped to the bench with Gonzalez and Bertrand, Sinti, and then Urda Pajeta is the only actual change to the 23 coming in for Albanoz. Senior man, injured towards the end of the top 14 season last year. Really experienced guy to come off the bench if you need someone to help close out a game, if they were to be in the lead. But individuals, man, I mentioned Crema. He's the top tackler of the entire competition. He's followed by Lavanini, who's followed by Montoya, who's followed by Matera. So that also means the Pumas haven't had that much ball, but defensively, these guys have been rock solid. And then you're looking for turnovers. One, guys like Gonzalez, who is on the bench, and then Montoya right up there as well. So very, very dangerous. Interestingly, New Zealand last week did manage to break their run of not being able to score in the first 20 minutes. I think from the Ireland series going forward, the All Blacks hadn't managed a single point in the first 20, but they did get a try in the first 20 last week. But then on the flip side, they couldn't score in the final 20 when they need to, which is usually the All Blacks' time to try and either run down a team or put a team away. The final 20 is usually when it's done. But they were out of ideas last week. Argentina, on the flip side, have not been kept scoreless in the first 20 in the entire season. So Scotland matches, Wallabies matches, and the first All Blacks match, they've always managed to get some points on the board. I think it's like between 8 and 11 if it's over the entire year, including Scotland. It's 8 points average, and then 11 in the Rugby Championship. So they're looking pretty tidy the way they start games. Interestingly also, for every game where the All Blacks have kept below 4 metres a carry, so every time they're carrying the ball, so basically keeping them from getting over the advantage line, they've lost. Every time they've gotten above 4 metres per carry, they've won. And last week, the All Blacks were at 3.2 metres per carry, so really getting nowhere fast. Remember, 4 metres a carry is kind of the standard of a team going forward. So when the All Blacks are below that standard, they're just seemingly kind of lost for ideas. But when they can get forward, they're actually able to go on and win games. Argentina actually upped their kicking game in the last couple of weeks, and it seems to have worked for them well. That second game against Australia and that first game against the All Blacks, I think they're kicking, was it like 14% of the time? So basically option taking, the All Blacks were like 4%. So option taking for the All Blacks is largely to pass or to run, whereas the Argentinians quite happy to put boot to ball, which is a bit of a shift from when they played Scotland. So they've certainly upped their kicking game for the Rugby Championship, and they've gotten the best line out in the competition, which is maybe a little bit surprising, but they're at like 90%. So Cheika mentioned when he took over the Pumas wanting to get the key things right, and basically everything else kind of falling into place. That seems to be kind of happening. And interestingly, they've only conceded 10 clean breaks in the championship, which is the fewest of everybody. Argentina historically has been the team that kind of gets cut to bits. Very, very hard team to crack, although maybe a little bit vulnerable if the All Blacks can target it. At maul time, Aussie scored a few tries there. The All Blacks got one last week, and then, as I mentioned, scrum time as well. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. The All Blacks, like when they played South Africa in that second game, they offloaded like crazy, looked really confident, but we didn't see that same game last week. So, can the All Blacks bounce back? Well, the last time they played Argentina and lost was 2020. Remember, they lost 25-15. And then the next week they bounced back with, was it like a fortnight later? They bounced back with a 38-0 win. So they absolutely found a way to answer. But then in Ireland, tour of New Zealand this year, that did not happen. All Blacks lost lost the second one of the tour, lost their first game to Ireland, and then lost the second one. So yeah, it's really going to be a fascinating one to watch. The last 5, it is 3 to New Zealand, but then bookended by that Argentinian win in 2020, and then the most recent one just a week ago. But still, the average score across these last 5 games is 29-13 for what that's worth. Predictions-wise, the bookies have got the All Blacks by 14. Remember, it was like 20 last week, so they've taken a little bit of a step back, and then the Rugby Forecast algorithm says by 17 for the All Blacks. So All Blacks still big-time favourites to bounce back. Nick Berry is the ref. It's on in Hamilton. Can the All Blacks bounce back after a pretty disappointing one last week? We will kind of have to wait and see. If you want to get your hands on some All Blacks gear, I would check out Lovell Rugby. They've got last season's All Blacks jersey for like £45, which is certainly cheaper than what we can buy it, even on clearance over here in New Zealand. So, yeah, check it out, man. Lovell Rugby is a good shop. They got heaps of specials on. Check them out, link in the description. But, yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts. Can you see New Zealand bouncing back with their stable lineup from last week, or do you think the Pumas under Checker have got potentially the All Blacks number? So you guys let me know your thoughts, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.